Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the booth here. Riley and I joined by Noah Walker for the last time today as we get underway with our final here. $45,000 on the line between these two players. The first place winner gets $30,000. No, you don't understand. I get very nervous when saying the amount of prize money because if I say it wrong, I feel like the winner is going to come and say, "But Riley said this much. Give me it," and then I have to, cut them the check. I don't want to do that. $30,000 for the winner, $15,000 for second. Huge payday for either of these players, regardless of how you slice it. And I'm looking forward to seeing who is going to hoist the trophy. Will it be Minh Nguyen with Temur Rhinos? Will it be his opponent, Aiden Lamson, with Golgari Yawgmoth? Here's the path that these players have taken to get to where they are. Important to note as well that Devon Straub, Aiden Lamson, Minh Nguyen, and Andrew Varel all going to the World Championship after having made it to the semi-finals. What are your thoughts more broadly about this top 8 that we've had, the decks that have appeared, and sort of its implications for the modern format, Noah?
You're talking about the living end deck?
Well, just broadly speaking, what we've seen make it to the top 8, right? 3 copies of Yawgmoth, 2 copies of Living Ends, Rhinos, as well, 2 of those, although different versions, and then the Creativity deck. It looks like there is a certain, type of deck that's done really well this weekend, the Cascade lists and then the Yawgmoth decks as well.
Yeah, definitely. Those seem to be going in. I think a lot of people in their preparation, those were some of the decks that they were really gunning for. These Golgari Yawgmoth decks, these Domain Rhinos or regular Rhinos decks. I'm a little bit surprised not to see any Rakdos decks having made the top 8. I know that deck was also really popular, so a little bit surprising to me to not see any. But honestly, pretty standard stuff. All the decks that seem to be doing really well and all the players doing well had really good plans and really good lists.
And you can see it looks like, yes, it looks like Aiden hasn't picked up a loss yet in the top 8 at all. He's just 2-0'd everyone that he's come across. And so it seems to be in great nick with this Yawgmoth deck that he's playing. It does say that he's playing Living End in the semi-finals, but that was I'm not 100% sure what's going on with that.
No, he is. I think he is. He is playing Living End. I think
he is playing Living End. Yeah. The mistake
visual.
The mistake is in the finals. Yeah. Okay, we can confirm that now by having a look at his actual list here.
Yeah.
Living End the deck, both Cascade lists on both sides of the table here, and Aiden Lamson with a deck that has done obviously a lot of work over the years. This is the latest and greatest iteration of this deck, and we've highlighted some key cards from the most recent versions of it. Noah, cards like Grief, right? You bring that back with a Living End after having evoked it, and it can further ruin an opponent's day by taking out any potential answer they may have to your board.
Yep, Grief, excellent card in addition to this deck. We've seen him do some tricky stuff with his subtleties and just use them really well. Putting his own Cascader still on the stack. Sorry, the Starless isn't still on the stack, putting it on top of his deck so that he had more copies of Living End coming later. That is just a really, really heads up play that we saw Aiden make earlier. And it just shows that, this might be one of his first times making it this far in any sort of tournament like this. His first RC, about to be his first Pro Tour, first World Championships. He is no stranger to playing Magic well, though. He's proven that.
We're going to see how he goes in the final. His opponent, however, no slouch himself, Minh Nguyen. We just saw him take apart the 5-color Creativity deck with this Temur Rhinos list, masterfully piloted, using and balancing his disruption with his threats really, really well. Particularly post board, we saw him lean into the Murktide region and the subtlety angle, putting a clock on the opponent with these creatures instead of just going all in on the Crushing Footfall. So this is a deck that can be a lot more flexible than it looks at first blush, and Min has sort of shown us that with how the interaction in this deck can be leveraged.
Totally, yeah. Min making some really tight plays with this deck. It's been just a pleasure to watch him navigate through these tough games with a nice list.
All right, waiting for confirmation that these players are ready, that we can head down and watch them get underway with the finals. And it looks like, yes, indeed, we are. So here we are, the finals of Dreamhack Denver. Riley Knight joined by Noah Walker in the booth, and our potential champions here. One of these two is going to be crowned the champion. Aiden Lamson, Minh Nguyen. Huge moment for both of them having qualified for the World Championship by making it through the semifinals.
Yeah, honestly, Riley, if I was one of these guys, I wouldn't even like. Yeah, I want to win. Like every tournament I ever play in my life, I want first place. But at this point, I'm going to Worlds. I would take a second place. I could live with that one.
Yeah,
Still
the
sleep,
it,
still
it sort
sleep
of
easy.
feels like the hill has been climbed, right? And now this is just the bonus. A nice bonus, admittedly. $15,000 difference between first and place here, so it's certainly a big match. But I imagine both of these players feeling very very satisfied to have made it to the World Championship with the win that they picked up in the semis there. So well done to both of them. But there can only be one champion, and we're going to find out who it is. Aiden Lamson on the play here. Cycles away a Street Wraith, and then goes fetching with a Misty Rainforest. Are we going to see one of these Surveil lands? This has been a really interesting addition to the modern format. It's sort of changed the way that people have built their mana bases, which takes a lot in a format like modern. But no, we're going to see an island, which says to me that Aiden will have more business to cycle away.
Yeah, probably either an Architects of Will or Curator of Mysteries. I don't know necessarily why he's doing it main phase. I don't know if he gains too much of that, but I guess he's just like, hey, like I'm not going to be doing anything on the first turn anyways. I might as well just get these play actions out of the way.
All right, and going to cycle away the Architects of Will, as you mentioned before, and now it's over to Min. So Min, also on a Cascade strategy, one that requires a little less setup than Living End. You don't need your bin full of creatures in order to go off as a Rhinos player.
Yeah, really scary matchup if you're Min. As he said a little bit in his winner's interview, he wasn't really looking forward to playing against Living End, and that's one of the main reasons why he chose to include, 4 copies of Endurance in his sideboard. So if he's able to pick up this game one against Aiden, I think he'll be in a good spot. But one of the hugest problems of just how these decks are constructed against each other, like, if Min goes off, makes a bunch of Rhinos, it's so easy for Aiden to just clear the board and then, present a bunch of lethal threats. So Min has to be really, really careful with how he navigates through this game, making sure that while, getting some pressure on and not giving Aiden forever is really a really important aspect of how this game is going to play out. It's even more important that he makes sure that he has sufficient answers to a resolved Living End.
We don't see a lot of sweepers in modern these days, and a card, a deck like Living End is one of the only decks really playing, and it's also a sweeper that gets them back a bunch of creatures. So it's not much of it's not a sweeper in the sense that Supreme Verdict is. And this is one of the problems that a deck like Temur Rhinos faces, right? If your opponent has 1-for-1 removal, sure, they can kill one Rhino, but then there's a second one. And if they kill that one as well with another piece of dedicated removal, then you 2-for-1 them. So that's a good spot to be. But as you say, you can build out a board as a Rhinos player, and then the Living End player just sweeps you, and you're kind of back at square one, or worse than square one, square -1, because the opponent's got all these creatures on the board.
Exactly. It is just an uphill battle from the beginning of the way their decks are constructed here for Min. So I would be impressed to see if he could manage to find a way to take this one down, honestly.
All right, fire, ice. Ice is going to ice down that that forest there. I love it when players do this. It's such a sick use of the card. Little Rishadan port that replaces itself.
Yeah, really such a nice tempo swing. It not that important on Aiden's turn 3 here. I don't think he necessarily even would have opted to play some sort of Cascade spell here, but slowing down his development and, making it so that he's not able to cycle as many cards maybe that he was planning to, not have an end of turn Cascade spell available to him. Really important for Min.
Tap Steam Vents for Aiden. Back over to Min now, who, with 3 mana of his own, may elect to Cascade if he has the option to. Chooses not to, however. Back over to Aiden. So this game proceeding at a pretty cruisy pace here, without players sort of putting the pedal to the metal. So Aiden does have the Cascader in hand. I can see the Violent Outburst there. It's a Force of Negation. Subtlety also hanging out.
I think he picked up maybe a Grief or maybe that's a Shardless Agent. I can't really tell by the art, but either way, his hand is just filled with like tons of great spells. So
Yeah.
this game is looking a little bit tough if you're Min.
He's got some business here, Aiden does. He's thinking carefully about what he wants to do this turn. I think we will see something. Maybe a Cycler. Get some more information. Another card at the top.
I honestly love their pace of play. You can tell that both of these players are really just taking their time, making sure they don't make any missteps. As you said, Riley, $15,000 is the difference between first and second. So yeah, while they have their world championship slot locked up, they're playing for a ton of money right now.
Yeah, not the sort of time you want to make the mistake of, making a mistake by playing too fast. And so, Min here, I believe a Tishana's Tidebinder should stifle a Cascade trigger, right?
Yes, sir. I think that's exactly
what we're going to see here. Yeah, so this doesn't counter the Violent Outburst, but that's not the point. It stifles the trigger from the Violent Outburst, which means that it won't trigger the Cascade. But subtlety here, was this with the Tishana's Tidebinder still on the stack?
Yeah, so he's going to be able to subtly the Tidebinder, and he also cycled an Architects of Will, and Min literally just scoops it up. He's like, I can't beat that.
That is it. Yeah, with the way that Min indicated the Violent Outburst, I think he expected it to resolve and was obviously saying, I'll target your Cascade spell, but that's not how it went. And Aiden Lamson, 1 game away from a championship here, 1 game away from securing himself $30,000 in prize money, in addition to the World's Invite that he already has in the bag. So huge moment for him. And Min seems pretty relaxed, honestly. He's got to win 2 games on the trot here to get back into this. But the two of them seem to be having a good time. Well, obviously Aiden's having a good time. He's one game away from winning 30 grand. But looks like Min's pretty relaxed as well, which is good. That's the headspace you want to be in. Chilled out, in your zone, moisturized, thriving, ready to go,
I could not possibly agree more, Riley. Min cool as a cucumber. Yeah, sometimes you lose game 1. As he said, he was kind of expecting that going into this matchup. So I'd have been a little bit surprised if he was able to take it down. This game 2, though, it really, really gets interesting. Now that Min has access to these endurances, he has access to these mystical disputes. There's going to be a lot more sort of counter war stuff going on, more instant speed stuff. The Tishana Sidebinder are a really good way to answer a Cascade, as we saw in that game, but it's a little bit expensive, especially for game 1. There's good ways for Aiden to combat it, but once you add in these mystical disputes and these endurances as well, I think the matchup gets really, really interesting.
So let's talk about the options in Min's sideboard. You already mentioned the endurance. You already mentioned the mystical disputes. Other stuff, I don't know. We're not really looking at Force of Vigor or something like this in this matchup. Brotherhood's End, Flame of Arnor Magus, and Blood Moon. I don't think any of those are where you want to be.
No, Flame of Arnor is fine, right? Like, if he really feels like he has something that's just so bad in his deck that he wants like an additional removal spell that draws him some cards, but none of those cards are very impressive in this sort of matchup. I think he really was just devoting his sideboard slots for this matchup, being like, hey, I have these 4 endurances. They're going to carry a lot of weight here. And then I also have these 3 mystical disputes, which are just really flexible for a lot of matchups. So I think that's all we'll really see coming in for Min.
Well, I'm trying to look at what comes out, and I think Dead Gone is an easy choice because you're not really, even the unsummon side of Dead Gone, the Gone side, isn't that useful against Living End. It can be good against something like, as we saw, the Creativity deck, bounce the Archon and push through damage, but usually you need a lot more than a single unsummon effect to get through a Living End board. So I'm pretty sure they're coming out, right?
Yeah, I would see the Dead Gone's coming out, probably the Flame of Anors, some number of Fire and Ices. Maybe he keeps in like 2 Fire Ice, 1 Flame of Anor. Maybe he just keeps in 3 Fire Ice. I'm not really sure. That'll be up to Min. But something like that, I wouldn't be surprised to see for him, and just kind of keeping his deck really similar, streamlining his strategy, and hoping that, with the additional interaction that he can do a little better in the second game.
Endurance is so brutal though in this matchup, right? Like,
So
especially
strong.
if you can evoke it as well, so it dies before the Living End resolves, and you get it back. You've got a 3/4 when they've got a nothing.
So strong.
It can be really huge. Although it is difficult to evoke it in this list. There actually aren't that many green cards. There's Violent Outburst and Shardless Agent. That's it.
Yeah, it's definitely
Oh,
more of a
and the Crushing Footfalls, I guess, of course. Sorry.
yeah, and the footfall. It's definitely more of like a hard cast thing, I'd say,
Yeah.
in this matchup.
Yeah.
He has, I mean, you could pitch endurance to endurance as well, but not too much other than that. I mean, if you're min though, you're pretty fine kind of playing this tempo draw go strategy, not really tapping out too often because he kind of is forced to leave up mana for these Tishanish Tiebinders anyways.
Yeah.
So it kind of plays a similar role of as Tishanish Tiebinder as just like additional ways to stop Aiden from going off with Living End.
Definitely a bit better on the play as well when you get to 3 mana before your opponent, so you can have that disruption, these disruption pieces ready to go. Totally. On the other side of the battlefield, Aiden Lamson, his sideboard. What do we got working? What are we working with here? Leyline of the Void, Force of Vigor, Foundation Breaker, Mystical Dispute, Endurance of his own, Brazen Borrower, Dead Gone Dismember, and Ingot Chewer. I think he just wants to bring in some general interaction. Brazen Borrower, very good, especially against the Rhinos. Bounce a Rhino and it's just gone. That's it. I don't know about other cards. Like Mystical Dispute is useful in any matchup where your opponent's playing blue cards, obviously, but I think it's going to be a light touch for both players here when it comes to sideboarding.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Riley. Mystical Dispute's probably coming in. Maybe the Dead Gone, Brazen Borrower, Dismember, like some combination of those cards just as good answers to Murktide as being like one of the big creatures that he kind of has to have a little bit of respect for. The Dismember probably a little bit less so. Like it's.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't know about the Dismember, just given that this is a matchup where the 4 life can make a huge amount of difference. And broadly speaking, what are you really happy to use a Dismember to kill one Rhino? At least with a Brazen Borrower, you've got the 3/1 that you can rumble with after you've killed a Rhino. But I don't think 1-for-1 removal is the way to beat Temur Rhinos.
Yeah, totally. It's not great. Like I said, the thing about this matchup is Aiden's deck is already so good against Min's deck. Like, I don't think he is even really feeling the pressure even going into this game too. Like, yeah, endurance is a little bit annoying. He'll have to construct his strategy a little bit differently than he did in the first game. He kind of can't just go for stuff now knowing that Min has access to these endurances. So yeah, I think that's the only real change is it will be a little bit more of an endurance sub game. Aiden trying to sniff out exactly when Min has the endurance, maybe trying to set up for multiple living ends, and just having his own interaction to stop an endurance. Like if he's able to, line up a subtlety on an endurance at a really key time, then I'd say that this will be a cakewalk for Aiden.
This is the thing about Living End as well, is it's not a deck that can sideboard all that much. You sideboard too much, you lose too many of your cyclers, and it just means that your primary game plan is pretty seriously undermined by diluting your deck with all these disruptive or interactive elements. You just can't afford to do it that much.
Exactly. Yeah. Gotta keep the deck doing what the deck does best.
Yeah, and this is the problem that I personally run into when playing decks like these is that I like having a sideboard that's flexible and enables you to adapt to different situations. But then you play a deck like Living End, and you've only got a really small number of sideboard cards or sideboard slots, if that makes sense. That you can, you can't sideboard out your copies of Living End. You need the copies of Shardless Agent and Violent Outburst in order to cast your Living End. So. Yeah, it doesn't give you as many options post board, but then sometimes you don't need them, right? Like that's the whole point of playing this powerful linear strategy like this, is that you just sort of overrun what your opponent's trying to do, whether they have the interaction or not.
Yeah, I think that is like really what goes to show the power in these Cascade decks, right? Like they have been so consistent at fighting off these chalices, at fighting off these counter spells because of what you were talking about, Riley. They're just so well constructed, and so like they're just smooth builds that have a really consistent game plan that they want to execute every game.
While we're waiting for game number 2 to get underway, I want to remind you that this stream is supported by Heavy Play. HeavyPlay.com this weekend offering you 10% off your order with the coupon code Denver 2024. Head over to heavyplay.com for all sorts of the latest and greatest in trading card game accessories. They've got deck boxes, they've got card sleeves, they've got playmats, all sorts of stuff over there. And they're also a huge reason why this stream is even possible in the first place. If you like watching the highest level of competitive Magic on broadcasts like this, it is well within your interests to support companies like Heavy Play, because they are the companies that support these broadcasts. Heavyplay.com. Go and vote with your wallet. Make your mark supporting live broadcast of high-level constructed Magic by going to heavyplay.com using coupon code Denver2024. Tell them we sent you. And our deep and heartfelt appreciation to Heavy Play for supporting the stream in the way that they have. It wouldn't be possible without them. And so we certainly are very, very glad to have them along.
Yeah, Heavy Play really making dreams come true this weekend, honestly.
Alrighty, we're underway with game number 2, what might be the last game in this tournament. Aiden Lamson, 1 victory away from securing a championship. Min Nguyen has to dig in here with Temur Rhinos. We have already characterized Noah this matchup as being favoring Aiden. So Min, maybe a little bit of an uphill battle for him. Aiden cycles away a generous end, can go and find a forest, see what he goes and gets. Perhaps a breeding pool here.
Yeah, kind of a slow start for Min. I mean, it's not like he has a particular like very many plays before turn 3 anyways. So like I guess he could have an ice here or something like that. It wouldn't do too much on the second turn, to keep Aiden down. He would just be able to cycle in response anyways. Really what you're looking for here, if you're Min, is to have just a turn 3, way to create some rhinos and then just follow it up with a bunch of interaction as much as you can, really set back into your tempo game plan.
He's going to improve his draw again here by fetching the other surveyor land, the hedge maze. These lines are so good. I know we've been banging on about it, but they really are. It's one of those things. If you've been playing Magic long enough, you can identify these tiny little 1% edges that do make like a really, really meaningful difference. And for me, these surveyor lands have all the trappings of cards that don't seem that impressive at first blush, but actually change an entire format in a very subtle way.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Riley. We've been talking about it since the first match that we cast, just how they've been almost instant inclusions into the majority of the deck lists that we've seen. Not seeing any copies in Aiden's version of Living End, a little bit surprising. He chose to rely a little bit more on this Boseiju, these Odawaras, just kind of giving his lands, not valuing the surveil as much as the flexibility of having like a land that's also a removal spell. So I respect that in his deck building, but also, I think we saw a Living End list earlier this weekend that did have them, and I thought that it was really clever, just being able to fill up more cards in the graveyard. So I mean, hey, clearly it's worked out for Aiden. He doesn't seem to think that he needs them.
Grief, the play here, evoked by Aiden. And Min does seem to have a response here. Goes and finds the hedge maze we were talking about before. And he gets to surveil before this grief trigger resolves. Keeps that one on top. Oh, no, it doesn't. Okay, Steam Vents goes to the bin.
Yeah, seems like you're just making a decision.
And reveals a pretty good looking hand here. It is missing a cascade card, but some good interactive options for him here. Flame of Anor stayed in. And that land, I believe, is a Gemstone Caverns.
I think so. I think that might be one of the cool art Gemstone Caverns, one of those new fancy doohickeys.
Yeah, I think it's the Lord of the Rings version. I think it's the Glittering Caves of Aglarond.
Wow. You're just an expert now, aren't you?
I do. Oh, well, I don't want to give myself too much credit, but I do know a fair bit about Lord of the Rings.
Just an absolute expert. You'd
So
love to see that.
the glittering caves of Aglarond are found. Have you seen the films?
Of course, yeah.
Have you read the books?
No,
Okay. All
an
right. Well,
irresponsible young man. I always try to get into books. I've read some books,
yeah.
but when a book is really long, like for me, man, like I'm just watching the movie.
You're
Like I don't
busy, man.
care.
You got places to go. You got people to
Yeah,
see. I get it.
exactly.
Well, the glittering caves are behind Helm's Deep, where the forces of Rohan held off Saruman's Uruk-hai, and Gimli ended up wanting to take Legolas there, and I believe they visited after the War of the Ring. This is not interesting to anyone because anyone who is interested in this already knows this, and they don't need to be told again. And anyone who doesn't know this probably isn't interested in it. So we'll leave it there. Grief resolves. Tishana's Tidebinder hits the bin after Aiden has a good old think about it. And the glittering caves of Aglarond return now to Minuin's hand.
Are we back, Riley? Sorry, I fell asleep. Sorry.
Yeah, just a quick nap for you, mate. That's
my
fine.
bad. That's my bad.
That's all good, dude. I can sit
Yeah.
here and talk about Lord of the Rings all day long. Don't worry about it. All right, back over to Aiden now. Cycling away an Architects of Will after Min plays his third land. And Aiden, I would say in the driver's seat at this point. He's building out his graveyard nicely. Min does have some decent interaction, but Aiden is the one playing the proactive game.
Which is not really what you want to see if you're Min. You know, like I was saying, he really needed a turn 3 way to make Rhinos here. So not having one is going to be really painful as this game goes on. I don't really know if he can win a super late game here against Aiden's build unless he's able to pick up a couple copies of Endurance to really slow Aiden down.
All right, Urborg turns everything into swamps. Cycles away an Architect of Will. Double Grief. And we see Flame of Anor here.
Good old instant speed divination. We take those.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one of the cards I was most unreasonably excited for was Quick Study last year. Just an instant speed divination. I know it's not much of a card that, these days it's people are going to get people up and about, but I really like casting that card.
You were like, man, power creep has come so far. The divination isn't even a household name any longer. Like my grandkids won't even know of divination.
Yeah, exactly. Divination, what's that? That seems very, very bad. It's like, well,
yeah.
Yes, it is actually. No, it was never really that good. But, it was a card that we liked. We had a soft spot for it. Anyway, a Crashing Footfalls suspended after the divination mode of Flame of Anor is. You'll notice I'm keeping suspiciously quiet about Flame of Anor, despite it being a Lord of the Rings card. I actually don't know the story behind the Flame of Anor. It's just something that Gandalf mentions when he's holding off the Balrog at the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. But I don't know. I don't know the Flame of Anor deep lore, so I'm choosing not to address that.
Wow, what a casual!
Honestly,
I know. Honestly, I can't believe this.
I don't know, dude. It's probably something to do with I don't know, the fact that he's a Maya. He's got some secret power or something. I don't know, man.
Sounds like you got some research to do. Honestly,
looks like it. Yeah, I'll be cracking the books. I'll be heading into the appendices after this. Don't you worry about it. All right. We got a Grief. It's been evoked, exiling a Grief, and a Subtlety, exiling Lorien revealed. Now, the interesting thing about Lorien, no, we're not going to do this. Subtlety, looking to contest Grief here and prevent Aiden from continuing to tear apart Min's hand. But neither player able to enact their plan A, right? Neither player enabled to get their Cascaders going. Here's Oliphant. Now that I'm paying attention, I'm noticing a lot of Lord of the Rings cards in this matchup.
Yeah, it really is the LOR matchup. You are meant to cast this specific match, Riley. How does that feel?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, if the pace of play slows down, we can get into the Oliphant deep lore for sure.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited, honestly. I'm hoping Min takes down this game just so I can hear all about Oliphant.
So we can hear all about the Oliphant. Oh, and the Easterlings. Oh, dear. All right, no, it's fine. All right, here we go. Cascade. We got some business. We got some action. Min Nguyen putting a Cascade trigger onto the stack in addition to this violent outburst. And is it going to resolve? Are we going to see 2 Rhinos come into play? Looks like it.
Oh, no. The Blood Moon seen by Aiden. You've been found out, Min. Run.
Oh, the Blood Moon has come in.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, yeah, like you kind of force Aiden to fetch up these basic lands. It's just a respect game. Like you make it so that Aiden can't just fetch up whatever land that he wants throughout the entire game,
Mhm.
just by knowing the existence of these bloodmoons in your deck, and you might as well bring them in because you might just catch Aiden with his pants down, right? Like, oh yeah, he fetched up. Like, he just stopped having respect for Blood Moon for
Mhm.
5 seconds, and now the game ends. So I
Yeah,
like it.
only 2 basics, only 1 forest, 1 island, but we saw Aiden, use the generous ent to search up a basic forest as well, so maybe it's on his mind. Honestly, maybe it's something he's actually thinking about. In which case, really heads up stuff from him, being aware of, some of the more esoteric sideboarding that Min could have done. Alright, in come the Rhinos, looking better and better for Min now as Aiden goes all the way down to 6. Holy moly.
I mean, Min's hand is basically the best possible hand he could have right here. It's just a force of negation and then a second force of negation and a blue card. So he seemingly has this one locked up unless Aiden has a lot of good cards in his hand.
Yeah, right. A force of negation that can be cast for free and one that can be hard cast as well. Now, it doesn't do anything against grief, as it is a negate effect. But yeah, Aiden has a look and he's like, yep, not beating that. No way, no how. And so we are going to game number 3. That game was a little slower, a little more disruptive, a little more interactive. And at the end of the day, Min positioned himself really, really well there to force through the dub. I'm interested to know, Aiden was down to 14. Was that just through shocks and fetches?
Yep. His mana base was so painful. I think Shock Fetch, Cycle Street Wraith, it was just
True.
like, yeah, I'm at lethal from 2 Rhinos attacks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Even with the grief. So and this is what we were talking about when it comes to diluting your main deck, right? I'm not saying that Aiden did that necessarily, but what the point I was trying to make before is that if you can't enact on your plan A from the get go, you will run into trouble with a deck that is as linear as Living End. This the Temur Rhinos deck has a bit more room to maneuver in terms of being more disruptive, right? It has a 1 card combo that it supports with interaction disruption, whereas Living End is certainly very consistent thanks to the fact that it can cycle endlessly, but it doesn't have the same disruptive breadth as a deck like Temur Rhinos. So maybe it's got more raw power in terms of when it goes off. Its one card combo is certainly more devastating, but Min, masterful stuff from him, making sure that he had disruption to go with the pressure that he leveraged in order to take down the win in game number 2.
yeah, I think that's a really good point that you made, Riley. Their decks, you know, while being very similar in being like, yeah, like, you know, I'm gonna set up my game plan, I'm gonna cascade into like my big payoff spell. Min's deck is much more of just like, yeah, I'm playing Teamer good cards that with mana value 3 or higher. I just need to resolve one cascade spell and then kind of leverage my game plan from there. Aiden's deck is really, really focused on getting living end going. He doesn't really have any secondary plan. Like, yeah, he could start casting some Curator of Mysteries come turn 4, but that's not really, too cohesive of a game plan. He's really all in on this living end, and
Mhm.
his deck, needs to kind of get that going. Otherwise, he doesn't have a real way to win the game.
Whereas you can see a Team Rhinos deck win without ever putting Crashing Footfalls on the stack. We saw it. We saw Min do this with the combination of, well, the combination, it's a time-honored strategy, but the combination of a big creature like Murktide Regent and the combat step.
Yeah, you just get a Merc down there, maybe a Dishonest Tiebinder or two, a subtlety. Like, you can just start beating down your opponent.
All right, game number 3, the deciding game, the last game in this match, and indeed this tournament. What a tournament it's been. It's been great to have your company as well as we've explored the modern format and seen all of the wrinkles and intricacies that have emerged from the most recent sets, particularly Murders of Karlov Manor. I would say the biggest cards to impact the format consistently, at least across many different archetypes, are these Surveyor lands. I'm expecting to see more of this. I think I'm going to update some of the decks that I've got with Surveyor lands. I'm well and truly a convert as to how useful they can be.
I think that's a great plan, Riley. They seem super fun and they seem super competitive. So,
well, even just like I play a lot of Timeless on MTGA, and even just putting them in my Jesco deck there, right?
yeah,
Like I'm because so often you're fetching for an untapped or for a tapped shock land. You may as well get a bit of extra value. Yeah, I love these cards.
exactly. How many turn ones does it go? Yeah, I don't have any one drop in my hand. I'm gonna fetch end a turn because I want to use some of my mana on turn 2. I'll just get this Stomping Ground tapped. I'll just get this Breeding Pool tapped.
Mm. All right, Urborg, turn number 1 for Aiden here. Cycles away a generous Ent.
Oh, we're going to see a basic land. Min has put the fear in Aiden.
Yeah. You reckon?
See, okay. Do you see? You saw that look on Aiden's face, like he was in the blender there. He was like, "Yeah, like what can I do here?"
No.
Oh, yeah,
He gets
exactly. He's like, I can't afford to respect the fact that I know that my opponent likely has a copy of Blood Moon and a copy of Magus Moon in their deck. That's what Aiden has decided here.
Maybe Min's taking him out. The mind games. How many levels deep do we go here, right?
Ooh.
Because your opponent saw the Blood Moon thanks to the Cascade flips. So then do you take it out? And then you have the benefit of them playing around Blood Moon. But then if you're Aiden and you know that Min is going to do that, then you don't play around the Blood Moon. But then if you're Min and you know that, then you keep the Blood Moons in.
Exactly. So we'll see who has what in their deck and who level 2 by the end of this.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see if Aiden has next leveled Min or maybe previous leveled himself here with fetching this breeding pool. We'll see what Min wants to go and get. I imagine we're going to see a Hedge Maze or a Thundering Falls.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, turn 1, really set up your further turns. Makes a lot of sense to me.
All right. Has a look at the top card. And is going to keep it on top as well. Okay. I think that was the... What was that? Was it a Lorien Revealed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I think he just wanted the extra blue card. Maybe he wanted the extra mana source.
Uh-huh.
That has been one of the most impressive cards printed in recent years to me. Just
Lorien Revealed.
Yeah, just being able to pitch it to Subtlety or Force of Negation, also find a land when you need it, also be able to draw 3 cards when you're flooding out. It just casually does so much for a 5 mana sorcery.
Yeah, a land that you can pitch to Force of Will and Legacy as well is just ridiculous.
Totally.
Yeah. All right. Waker of Waves. The play for Aiden here, discarding that in order to use its ability. And now he has he gives himself pause to think about what he wants to do with this turn. Things all tied up at 1 and 1. Both these players a hair's breadth away from becoming the champion here and taking home $30,000. Although the runner-up still walking home with 15K, so not a bad day in the office for both of these blokes. All right. Creator of Mysteries cycled. And what have we got here? We've got Violent Outburst. We've got Force of Negation, Subtlety.
I'm not sure I see any lands for Aiden. Yeah. So this is exactly why he opted to get the breeding pool, right? He can't afford this game to do any sort of playing around a Blood Moon effect. He just can't. There's nothing he can do about it. If Min has it, he has it, and that's that.
Yeah, that was sort of signaled by the Urborg now we think about it, right? Because otherwise you would open with a fetch to get a tap land, or you'd open with a tapped shock. But no, opening with Urborg says that you're pretty light on lands to begin with. And Min isn't going to have these issues, right? Not only does he have the Lorien Reveal that he's cycling, he also has the Surveil land, which I think he's putting into play with the Misty Rainforest. I think a judge is being brought in here because what Min has done is activated the island cycling ability of the Lorien Revealed, then went to put a Thundering Force on the battlefield, which obviously you can't do, you put in your hand. And now we're saying, oh, but how about I just crack the Misty Rainforest instead to get the Thundering Falls? But I think Aiden's saying, well, no, you fetch the Thundering Falls off the Lorien Revealed. So you can see a bit of a shake at the head from him. He's not too happy with the way that went. But yeah, should have been a bit more precise with the order in which he was fetching those lands there. So it's a stomping ground now tapped for Min. But this does come at a cost now, doesn't it, Noah? Because now he has a tapped land in hand.
Yeah, not the greatest sequencing. He had a little bit of a brain fart. He was intending to like fetch and also cycle Yorion Revealed, accidentally Yorion Revealed it and then fetched, and in his brain he did it the other way around. It happens. You know, they're in the finals of this 14 round Magic tournament. Like they've played 16 rounds already today. So I get it. It really happens to the best of us.
Let's find out how much of an impact this has as well, with Min not having access to 3 mana on turn 3. I don't know that he has a land in his hand if he's playing the Thundering Falls there. All right, Aiden finds the 3rd land. He is now 1 land behind, but it's Boseiju.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. His mana base is looking a little bit sus this game.
Yeah, no red mana here, so can't cast the Violent Outburst. And does have a decently stacked graveyard to take advantage of if he were able to get a living end onto the stack. All right. What's next for these players here? Aiden just has to ship here. Can't really do much else. Back over to Min, who now has the 3 lands that he needs. Oh, and a 4th and ships as well. Okay, so maybe the tap Thundering Falls wasn't actually too much of an issue if he's now passing with 4 mana up. Okay, cycle Street Wraith.
I'm surprised to see this Street Wraith not cycled during his main phase. I feel like he, having Violent Outburst in his hand, he's really incentivized to want to get a red source, like maybe hopefully top deck one. So I'm a little bit surprised to see the sequencing here.
Or even just a Shardless Agent, right? Even if you're going to play the Boseiju, if you want to go off with your living end. But you can see, so subtlety, grief, force of negation, violent outburst, and then I think that's another cycler. I think that's an Oliphant there.
Yeah,
oh no,
it's a generous
right. No, generous end. Yeah. Okay, so that's his red source.
Yeah, huge draw here in the generous end to be able to find a red source here.
Doesn't get a stomping ground.
His hand, though, a little, anemic. It's not doing very much. As you said, it's like just a bunch of doubles. But I mean, being able to pitch grief, and then also have access to a subtlety is not bad. I think that his grief is going to be met with a subtlety, though, which is not exactly what he's looking for.
But I don't know. Do you just go for it here?
I don't really know what else you do.
I think what you do is you grief, pitching grief, and then if that's met with a subtlety, you can subtlety the opponent's subtlety and then still go off with your red source. Oh, but look at this hand. Look at this hand. Oh, my goodness. Min Nguyen sitting pretty. One of the best hands imaginable in this matchup. Double force of negation, double endurance, subtlety, mystical dispute, and a violent outburst.
Yeah, I don't. From this point, it would be pretty tough for him to lose, honestly, with all of this action. It's like, yeah, you can take an endurance here, and then he's like got another endurance that you can't even really like. If you're Aiden, you have no good answer to this endurance, right? Because first off, Min is going to be able to cast it still during Aiden's turn, so that means that Min has access to all of his free spells, and Aiden won't have access to any of his.
This is unbelievable. This has to be one of the best hands, one of the best position hands against a certain deck that I've ever seen, ever.
It is quite strong.
Like, sometimes you Thoughtseize your opponent and they're glad because their hand sucks and you're like, thank you. Get rid of one of these bad cards from my hand. I appreciate it. Sometimes you Thoughtseize them and it's just like, oh my goodness, I wish I hadn't, just so I didn't know what I was up against.
Yeah,
this is one of those situations where Aiden has just read him and wept like the poor bloke. Look, how does he win this game?
I don't know. If I'm Aiden, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, I have all of these great cards that I have to play through. How do I want to sequence? He can't, if you're Aiden, you can't really go for too much of anything here. Like, he just has to let this violent outburst resolve and then cast, his own violent outburst, force Min to use one of these force negations in a spot where it's not hard cast, take away another one of the strong cards in his hand. But
do you then wait? Do you let this resolve? Wait, because your opponent's untapped, and then they can
exactly, and then he doesn't have to use both. So it's tough. You're in a really tough spot if you're Aiden here. I think you just have to go for it after it resolves. Make Min get rid of 2 of the solid cards that are in his hand. But Riley, Min untaps and he just casts endurance. Like
yeah. This is so brutal for Aiden, because if he casts the If he casts the Violent Outburst here, then Min can force it. If he doesn't cast it here, then Min can force it by paying the mana. So, oh boy, poor Aiden.
And that's not to mention the Mystical Dispute, right? Like, Min can untap and happily play an Endurance and know that Aiden can't have any possible answer to it, because the only answer he could have is a Subtlety, and Min will just have the Mystical Dispute for it. So
yeah. So he's got him covered. 6 waves from Sunday here. Poor Aiden Lamson looks like he's going to go down to Min Win, short of a miracle here.
I mean, Riley, this game just so similar to the last game, and we're seeing Aiden's mana base comes at a cost. He's hasn't even fetched this game, but he's taken 2 from the breeding pool. He's taken 2 from the stomping ground, and then also cycled a Street Wraith. So he's already on a 2-turn clock just from the existence of these Rhinos.
Yeah. Yep. Certainly not free. And then also you just think of the psychological impact of that grief. You know, this is it's a $15,000 hand that Min Nguyen just revealed to his opponent here.
That is a pretty expensive hand.
So Aiden now thinking about deploying his own Violent Outburst. He doesn't have any time. This is the thing. He doesn't have any time. This is the only thing that makes Min's hand what it is the fact that he had the Cascader as well, right? If Aiden is there looking at a handful of just disruption, he's like, right, okay, I just need time. I'll play through this. Like, I'll find a way to do this. But because Min also had the Rhinos to put onto the battlefield, because he had that 1-2 punch of disruption plus pressure, now we're in a situation where Aiden just doesn't have the breathing space he needs to deal with this situation. He doesn't have the tools he needs to fight through what Min is working with. And he's watching this game slip through his fingers. The poor, honestly, you got to feel for him, right? Because this has turned into a very one-sided affair.
Yeah, it seems like he's in a lot of pain here. I think it might have been, he's just in such a tough spot. Like, I don't mind passing here. I guess what he's thinking now is like, yeah, now I can try to go for the living end once we're in combat. Force Min to, maybe use up a main phase counterspell here. I'm honestly not sure. It's it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Because now Min can just hard cast either one of these Force Negations or just the Mystical Dispute. He'll probably lean towards the Force Negation, just so that way he has Force Negation and Mystical Dispute up still.
The advice I was given a long time ago when faced with situations like this, right, is where you feel like, you can't move forward, that you're going to lose no matter what, is you play to the outs that you have and give your opponent a chance to make a mistake. Right? And it's not often likely, but sometimes it happens. Sometimes your opponent stuffs things up and makes a meal of it. And so Aiden here, trying to do his best to get himself back into this game, putting the living end on the stack at the time that he deemed to be the most appropriate. But this endurance, obviously just one of the many pieces of interaction disruption that Min has in order to make sure this doesn't happen. But still, you've got to give yourself every chance. This is a $15,000 game of Magic, $30,000 to the winner, $15,000 to second. You're not just going to scoop them up and say it's give your opponent for free. So the living end resolves. This does buy Aiden a turn in the sense that it gets rid of the 2 Rhinos, but it does put endurance and subtlety back on the battlefield here.
Yeah, I don't mind this play from Min. I mean, I'm an aggressive player, Riley. I like to end the game as quickly as I can. I might have tried to consider, doing maybe a little counterspell sort of war here. The problem when you're Min is he doesn't have caster vision like us. He can't see Aiden's hand. He doesn't know exactly what he's playing against. So considering all of those things, I don't mind this play at all. I actually think it's quite good. You can essentially counter everything that Aiden is trying to do while using up the least of your important resources, right? He pitched a Crashing Footfalls from his hand that he wasn't using to be able to essentially hardcast an Endurance, right? Because the Endurance, even though it went to his graveyard, it's coming right back into play afterwards. So he kind of got the best of both worlds with the play that he made, except for his clock is a little bit slower. Now he's on a 3-turn clock as opposed to a 2-turn clock. So
Well, this is another lesson that that some people espouse as well. Is that, the further ahead you are, the fewer risks you should take. Whereas the further behind you are, the more risks you should take. So, Min sort of taking a more conservative line here to try to cover as many angles as possible. But will this change the way that this matchup pans out? A subtlety is flashed in here, I think, just as a blocker, right, to trade with the opposing subtlety.
Yeah, I don't hate it, I guess. Like, I don't really think he has too many other options, so.
Okay. Min's saying, no, I'm gonna cast a Mystical Dispute to trade against the subtlety on the stack. Which does seem like a good use of mana.
Mutavault is so huge here. It's so huge. That was an insane top deck. It made
Right.
his play go from like maybe not cutting the clock down to just very clearly an excellent line. So
right now because now it's lethal.
Yeah, and also he does have this other endurance, right? So let's say Aiden just like plays a creature here, he can deploy endurance with a counterspell backup, and then just try to win the game.
All right. Hardcast Curator of Mysteries. See what Min says about that. He's got an endurance, which it looks like he's going to flash in as well here. So Aiden's not dead next turn, right?
Oh, he is. He is. He just activates
with the
Mutavault,
with the endurance
all
and the
creatures.
Mutavault. Attack with everything, block a 3-power creature, and take 8 from the ones that get through. Yeah. Yes, even this blocker isn't enough because of that Mutavault, as you say. So Min here, this embarrassment of riches that he's had, might have just seen him walk away with a $15,000 or $30,000 payday here for first. Activates the Mutavault, sends them in. Does Aiden have anything? I don't think he does, and we might see the champion of Dreamhack Denver crowned here and now. Min Nguyen has a lethal attack. Aiden Lamson with no option other than to concede, and well done to our champion, Min Nguyen. Noah, you must be thrilled. A friend of yours making it all the way to the top and winning in one of the most convincing games of Magic I think I have ever seen. What a performance from our champion.
Hey, my buddy was seriously minute to win it this tournament. That was just truly a pleasure to watch. I mean, he played fantastically. No coincidence that he made it this far. Congrats to Min. Condolences to Aiden. Sick run, insane run for your first RC. Qualifying for World Championships. I mean, I've played like 20 Pro Tours and I haven't qualified for Worlds, so that is quite an impressive feat to on your first RC qualify for Worlds. He can't be too upset with second place. So.
No, certainly not. And with, of course, the World's invitation already in the bank, then that's the big reason that most people come to these tournaments, is to secure or attempt to at least secure an invite to the most prestigious tournament on the Magic calendar. And so well done indeed to Aiden for getting there. But Min Nguyen, our champion, $30,000 heading his way for that win. In addition to, of course, the World's Championship invite that he has as well, and the Pro Tour invitation as well. Looking forward to seeing more from this Min Nguyen fella. Tell us about this bloke, because you mentioned that he's a friend of yours. So, what can we expect to see from him on the biggest stages in Magic?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Min recently been taking a lot of strides in Magic, taking the game super seriously, showing up to as many of these RCs as he possibly can. Mm-hmm. Last chance qualifiers at Pro Tours and stuff. I would just expect to see a lot more of what we've seen today. Some really, methodical Magic. Sometimes you make little missteps, taking it so deep in such an important tournament. But I just think that we'll see him continue to grow as a player. Have these really consistent, solid lists that he's been spending a lot of time curating and, taking down tournaments.
Yeah. Well, he did such a good job getting through the top 8 in the way that he did. And that game 3 was just incredible. Like, showing not only, just how well he built this deck, but also how judiciously he'd sideboarded, bringing in these cards that were so backbreaking, the double endurance, double force, mystical dispute, subtlety, all the tools he needed in order to get across the line. So, really excited to see Min at the highest level some more. I'll be keeping an eye out for him in the Modern Pro Tour later on this year, I believe, is the one that is qualified for with this event here. And then, of course, the World Championship coming up much later in the year as well. and it'll be great to see Min rumble at both of these events. I think we're going to get the chance to catch up with Min. He might be sitting down with Tannen for a winner's interview here, Noah. But we're going to be able to hear from the man himself now, I believe, Min, with Tannen Grace, giving his thoughts on what we've just seen. So before we head there, though, however, I want to thank once more Heavy Play, our sponsors here, Noah. It's been great to have them at our side. And once again, we very heavily recommend that you go and check out what they've got on offer, heavyplay.com. Use coupon code Denver2024 for a 10% discount on all the stuff that's there. There's deck boxes, there's sleeves, there's all sorts of other trading card paraphernalia that you want to get your hands on. So heavyplay.com. Again, vote with your wallet. If you like seeing tournaments like these, supporting the sponsors is the best way to make sure that they keep coming to your screens. So head over and help out, support the people who are supporting this broadcast. Because once again, it is fantastic to have Heavy Play along with us. And thank you so much once again to Heavy Play for their support of this stream. Before we head over to the interview as well, which will close out the show, I want to thank, on a more personal note, I want to thank my friend and colleague Noah Walker for helping me get through this broadcast. Noah, it's been a pleasure to work with you. It always is fantastic to be at your side, mate. So thanks once again for being a stalwart colleague of mine. I hope you've enjoyed the weekend. It's been great to explore Modern with you.
It's been so fun, Riley. Truly my pleasure. Hearing about your deep Lord of the Rings lore. I mean, not everyone is lucky to hear stuff like that every day. So I feel blessed personally. You know, shout out to Heavy Play. Shout out to all these behind the scenes people, Jeff, Honorog, BJ, really holding it down for us, keeping the broadcast what it is. And, you know, our other casters this weekend, I had such a pleasure, you know, watching Corey and BBD go at it, watching Niall and Mason go at it. So just an awesome weekend, and I'm just blessed to be a part of it, honestly.
Yes, indeed. And I want to also thank, the people behind the scenes who contributed this, and the people in front of the scenes as well. All the casters have done a great job. You know, it's a tricky thing to do much of the time, and you know, I think the entire team's acquitted themselves very well this weekend, and I hope you think so at home. But it really is the MVPs behind the scenes, the ones turning the cogs and the gears, making sure that we've got all the information we need, making sure the tournament's running smoothly. So huge thanks and huge appreciation on behalf of everyone, I would say, to Anurag and to Jeff and to BJ, and of course to the tournament staff as well, the judges, the officials, and the players for turning up. But the biggest thanks goes out to you for spending your weekend, for watching us here from Denver, well, from wherever we are around the world, and being part of the success of this tournament. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you again next time at another broadcast like this in the not too distant future. Anyway, that's that from us in the booth. We're going to throw it over to Tannen now, and thanks of course to Tannen for holding down the fort on the side as well. But Noah, any final thoughts before we chuck it over to the winners interview?
Honestly, Riley, not too much. I was just pleased to see how much fun these players were having this weekend. Pleased to see how competitive the tournament went. Really, really well run, well executed tournament. Looked like would have been fun to be a part of, like playing. So I was just excited to be able to be casting it.
Well, it's been great to do it with you, mate. On behalf of the entire broadcast team, thanks for tuning in. Over now to Tannen, who is waiting with our champion at Dreamhack Denver. It's Min Nguyen.
For the final time this weekend, welcome back to the interview area brought to you by Heavy Play. I'm with our champion, Min Nguyen. Grueling weekend. You've come out on top. So many rounds that you've had to play here, so many small edges for you. How do you keep your focus and composure through this long of a tournament?
Just one step at a time, just focusing on the current match and the next match. And ooh, it's so much to take in right now. Yeah, drinking a lot of water. Make sure you guys drink a lot of water throughout the entire event. I drank a couple of cups every round, I'm pretty sure.
There's the cheat code. Hey, this trophy looks pretty good on you. It's a nice little win here in the finals. Very close couple of games, and then that draw in game 3. Holy crap. Unbelievable. At what point did you realize, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the champion?
Honestly, as soon as he missed his third land drop, and my hand was stacked, I said this game's over. And I just knew the play patterns to navigate through it. As soon as he griefed me, there was a decision there I could play Solitude, or you could just look at my hand as well. That's perfectly fine with me.
Well, you came in here with a little bit of swagger. You were saying, I came here to win. You backed it up. Unbelievable weekend for you, Min Nguyen. Congratulations yet again from everybody here. Everybody's so happy for you. You've got to be over the moon. What's next for you? You've got World Championships coming up. You've got the Pro Tour coming up. Is this going to be the start of a big time run?
Oh yeah, I'm going to try to keep running as much as I can, for sure.
All right, men, congratulations yet again. And that's going to be it for us this weekend. For everybody watching at home, thank you very much. From everybody in the back, the crew, the casters, thank you for being with us the whole time. Thanks to Heavy Play for sponsors. Thanks to Laughing Dragon putting on the event. And we'll see y'all in Dallas.